1. Here we are. Welcome to the David the Dog Trainer podcast, episode 40. Here we are. We made it.
We made it.
Doobie is joining me today. We don't have a
Hello.
special guest, but I think we'll have one next week also.
Oh, yeah?
Let's talk about that after. I'm on it, dude.
That's what I'm talking
We got
about.
guests coming in. I'm like, hey, you want to be on the podcast? Hey, you want to be on the podcast? Hey, hit me up if you want to be on the podcast. And we got some people that want to be on the podcast.
That's what we like to hear.
Last week's podcast was a hit.
Yes.
The cool thing about last week's podcast was we got some new listeners in from it.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I saw some people that Kate and Amanda were kind of posting that were like, hey, loved listening to you on the podcast, this, that. Listen.
Let's go.
Hell yeah. New listeners. I like it.
Yeah.
So we're trying to keep that rolling.
I think it was nice, too, because it was the Cleveland dog training community, you know?
The Cleveland dog community.
You know, two meccas in the area.
That's
coming
it.
together and talking.
Here we are.
Here we are.
Yeah, aside from that, what's new?
Not a whole lot, my man.
Is that gel in your hair?
It is not. I went and put water in it real quick. I forgot my hat today, so the first thing he says to me when I come in is like, looks like you just got out of bed. And I was like, yeah, I know. So I tried. This was my last ditch effort, was to put some water in.
Isn't it funny that, like, for me, if I don't put a hat on, no matter how clean and showered and presentable I am, I look like I just rolled out of bed.
I do
100% of the time. You know what it is? This is the reason, this is the secret for why I always wear a hat, guys. I have this really, really horrible colic, like right here. You know?
Really?
And the hair just twists right there, you know? And no matter how, like, if I want to, like, look presentable without a hat on, I have to have had my hair cut within the last 3 days so I can get that part real short.
Yeah.
And then I got all that gel, and I just,
Yeah, you got to just tape it down.
you know, just plaster that thing to the side of my head.
Yeah.
But if I don't do that, I look like a goddamn mess. So this is why I wear a hat every day.
Does your hair grow really fast, too?
It grows very fast.
Dude, that's the problem.
Yeah, that's the issue, especially like those areas. I don't know.
The problem areas, of course.
Problematic areas.
Yeah.
What's new?
Well, I was supposed to go to Aaliyah yesterday, but he is having issues sourcing some of his seafood. So half the menu is not going to be there in time, so we got to do it next week.
Yeah.
I'm excited. I saw you go to Pompadour.
We went to the Pompadour.
That looked great.
It was phenomenal.
Dude, I want to get back there so bad,
Yeah.
but they've been so, like, busy and stuff, so.
So we took Brittany and Sean out there.
Yeah, was that their first time?
First time. Loved it. We were there for like 4.5 hours. Like, literally. Like,
Yeah.
we sat down and we were just having a good time.
Yeah.
I'm not even exaggerating. I'm pretty sure we ordered everything off the menu and then a couple of things multiple times.
Yeah.
Like their short rib they have right now, we definitely ordered that twice. I feel like maybe something else. It's just so good. Just all those small, just like little bite-sized little plates.
Oh,
like,
yeah.
It was so funny. They brought it out in twos, which was probably a mistake because it's like two small things for four of us, right?
Yeah.
And as soon as those two things came out, we were just like freaking vultures, just cutting our pieces and stuff.
Yeah.
It's like, hey, did you take too much of that? Did you take too much of that? You know?
Yeah.
It's
Dude,
great.
it's just so cool, like, because he self-taught himself, you know, pretty
Yeah.
much. And I don't know, his ability to make things match so perfectly. You know, he was like, when I first went there, it was like his thing was hot and cold, like mixing hot and cold things together to make this like perfect temperature in your mouth and stuff. And it was just like so good.
Temperature in your mouth.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah. You take a bite of each and it would just like, I don't know. I can't even explain the
There it
science
is.
behind it.
I like it.
But yeah, it's great. Does she remembers you, right?
Of course.
Leanne.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
They both do. I worked with them somewhat recently.
Oh, really?
Yeah, we did lessons and stuff. We're coming to daycare every single week.
Yeah.
Yeah, of course.
Old Hobbs.
Yeah. Hobbs and Rocco.
Rocco, that's what it was.
Yeah. No, it was a fantastic time. We had a really great time out there. So did that. That's it.
Yeah.
Doing things like that.
Went to a wedding. It was okay.
Just okay.
Yeah. I mean, the food was good.
Yeah.
I don't know. Weddings are fun.
Yeah, they're hit or miss.
Yeah, exactly.
We're
You know
going
it
to Bridget's this weekend.
Oh, shoot.
Training Tiny Dogs is getting hitched.
Let's go.
Going to the wedding.
Nice.
It's going to be a ball.
Yeah. Oh, no. Polished off that espresso. He's about to be wild.
About 2 sips there.
He was out of coffee, so he had an espresso.
Yeah. Okay, cool. So we got a lot of big things in the works right now. We are doing all sorts of shit at the shop. It's funny. So maybe like 3 months ago, something like that, I really tried to start separating myself from some of the actual training in the facility, the board and trains and the one-on-one sessions and stuff like that. And I'm doing very few of those right now to try to like leave more time for other things, working with the staff, doing more media stuff, podcasts, obviously, like all sorts of different stuff. And it's so funny, like, I was looking at my schedule this week and like all of the things that I have on it. And like I have officially filled all of that time that I gave myself with other tasks now.
I mean, that's the point though, right?
Yeah. So we're getting ready to do a really cool media adventure that is to be announced here soon. And we reached out maybe 4 days ago or something on my personal Instagram, just talking about, we're looking for somebody who's interested in getting some free training for this, It's kind of a secret thing that we're in the works and stuff like that. And I think I told you at this point, I've received like almost 90 individual emails about it. So literally crazy. Yesterday and the day before, I was just reading emails all day, just like, because like most of these were like very long, written out, like these are all the problems I'm having with my dog and this and that, and it's just crazy. It's crazy for a couple of reasons, right? So one, that many people really want to do training with me is really cool. I mean, like it's, we look at the facility. Sometimes it's hard for me to detach and look at everything going on at the facility and look at the fact that at any given time we have 14, 15 board and trains there. We're booked through next year with them. We have full schedule of one-on-ones 5 days a week at the facility. And we're training hundreds and hundreds of dogs every single year, like, I don't know, whatever, a lot of dogs every year, right? And, we have a lot of people that reach out all the time and listen to the podcast and send inquiries and stuff like that in. But just in the freaking Cleveland area, it's so interesting how many people still need help with their dogs. Sometimes we look at, all of the different competitors around and different companies and this and that. And we're like, oh my God, man, if one more of them comes on the scene, it's like, it's going to screw us. We're going to go out of business. They're going to take all our clients away and this and that. And it's so interesting. Something, I think it was Jeff Gellman said one time I heard in a video from Solid Canine Training in Rhode Island. He was talking about, he's like, listen, there is no shortage of people needing help with their dog. Right? He's like, no matter what, no matter if there's 5 dog trainers in the city or 50 dog trainers in the city. And he's speaking mostly on like relatively large metropolitan areas and stuff. Like Cleveland is a fairly large population as far as our metropolitan area. He's like, you will be fine, right? He's like, you will find enough people that need your help still. Right?
100%,
It's just wild, And at this point, it's like, you keep looking at it and you keep trying to find more and more ways that you could assist everybody with helping their dogs, right? And that's going to kind of get into some of today's topics. So we made a Miracle Canine training guide for 2021 for our staff, just as like a reference manual to be able to help understand some of the processes of our training program and stuff. We're going to be going through some of that on here and discussing some of the concepts and why we structure things the way that we structure them.
You're going into your 4th year, right?
Yes, we will be in January in our 4th official year of Miracle.
So, I mean, we've talked about it before, how it was kind of just like a leap of faith. Like, okay, here I go on my own. Like,
listen, I mean, leap of faith from the standpoint of I handle stress very well. And I handle change very well typically, right? And whatever, like I feel like when things are hard, I typically can compose myself really well and work through those things. But the whole idea that my whole name that I built for myself was through this company that I created. It was the first official time where I was faced with this dilemma of, are people really coming for me or are they coming for this company?
Yeah.
Right? And that's why it was so scary to me leaving initially, is because that was the first time that I was really needing to test that. And my financial well-being, right, was on the line of which one is it?
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. But I mean, okay, so even going from that, I mean, could you imagine back then the growth that you've had in these almost 4 years? I feel like it grew so quickly, so fast, and I think that's a testament to the great training that you do and the company does. But can you, like, it feels like such a great accomplishment from how far you've become.
Yeah, I think from an efficiency of the facility standpoint, I did not expect it. Right.
Yeah.
Again, I've always been ambitious. I've always, in the back of my mind, been like, I want to grow this to be something massive, and I was always fairly confident that we would be able to do that. I don't know if I knew exactly what it was going to look like. Right. Let me give you an example. Right. So maybe 5-6 years ago, something like that, I drove out to New York City to go to like a Gary V like thing.
A little hype.
Yeah, it
Hype
was.
fest.
So it was at his father's wine shop in New Jersey, you know, and goddamn phone calls. I gotta start putting this thing somewhere else. I just, if the world blows up in the 2 hours that we're filming this podcast, I just like to at least be somewhat aware of it.
Yeah.
So I drove out to New York and New Jersey for this thing, and it was like a special event. They were only having like 50 or 60 people come to it. The price of entry for it was buying literally 2 cases of wine. It was like a wine that the store was getting in or something like that, which, by the way, is it's called the Competitor. It's a very delicious wine, and I had to buy 2 cases of it, and I still probably have like 5 or 6 bottles of it downstairs right now. We drank a lot of that wine.
Yeah.
But anyways, that was the price of entry for it. And it was a Q&A panel. And it was cool because I think there was less than 50 or 60 people there. There may have been 25 to 30 people there, right? And it was like an hour or 2 hour long thing. Yeah. And I remember Gary comes out, and it's just this small little space we're in. He comes out, right? He's right there. And he's just like, all right, guys. He's like, obviously everybody that's here right now knows me. They know what I do. They know what I talk about. They know what I preach, right? He's like, so this isn't going to be a fucking keynote. This isn't going to be me sitting up here just talking about all these concepts and why you should use social media and why you should build a personal brand and this and that. He's like, we're going to get into shit that's actually going to help you guys. This is going to be 100% Q&A today, and every single one of you is going to get to ask me a question right now. Right? And I was like, fuck yeah.
Yeah, dude.
And I was the first person he picked for it.
Oh, of course.
Right? And I'm sitting there and I'm so nervous. Right? Like, I'm like, oh my God. And he's filming it for like his Daily V episode and stuff. Like, there's literally a video you could find online of me like asking him this question. Right?
Damn. Okay. No pressure.
Yeah. So I asked him, I'm like, at the time, we had just opened our Columbus location, I think, right? We had just signed the lease on it, maybe.
Yeah.
And I think I asked him, I was like, yeah, my business partner and I, we own a dog training facility. And, we do these services. We have 3 locations right now. And I asked him, I was like, I don't know anything about running a business, right? I was like, my business partner kind of knows, but I don't think as far as like what we're trying to do right now knows. You know, like we're just like 2 young guys that are trying to like build something really cool.
Yeah.
I asked him, I was like, should we like bring in help? Like should we like partner with somebody that like knows about like growing companies and this and that, like to help us continue to grow this?
Yeah.
And he just looked at me and he's just like, I think he literally said like, just pump the brakes. He's like, it sounds like you're very ambitious. It sounds like you really want to grow. He's like, but a lot of new business owners fall into this like trap where it's like they look at locations like they look at like collecting fucking cards or something. It's like, oh, like I have 7 locations or I have 8 locations. And he looked around and he's like, this is Wine Library. He's like, this is one singular location that my dad has had forever. Yeah. And I don't remember exactly what he said, but he's like, oh, and it makes $2 million a year in profit or something like that. Yeah. He's like, what the fuck do I need 17 tiny little wine stores across the country when we have this?
It's true.
You know?
Yeah.
He's like, what do you need it for? I was like, and at the time, I don't know if it completely made sense to me, you know?
Yeah.
But as I pondered it and as, you know, continued to like look at like leaving Miracle and realize other holes we had within the company and stuff like that we've discussed numerous times on here, as far as, you know, bottlenecking ourselves and this and that, not having processes in place and this and that, I finally came to the realization of what he meant by that, right? He's like, if you could have one thing that you put all of your energy into and you focus on solving every problem within that thing and you focus on making that thing as efficient and great as possible, he's like, you're going to realize how much more you can get out of just that. And then you don't have to split your attention into all of these different things.
That's true. Yeah.
Right? So the reason why I say that is because the thing I'm most proud of is how efficient of a thing we've created. And it's still not perfect, right? There's still a lot of work that needs to go into it. But my attention has gone from we have to expand and do all these other things and this and that. Like, I still want to do those things, and those are still in the plans, right?
Yeah.
But I started realizing how much more efficient I can get everything here, and the better I continue to get that, the easier that process will be later on, right? And now our singular location is operating more efficiently than all three of the locations we had at the time when we had them in Heights.
Yeah, I was about to say that. Just from me, like, coming in for that last, like, year and a half of that company, I was just like, to see how you're running this now, I'm just like, that was like Stone Age.
Dude.
You know, basically,
literally, you know, like I look at some of the problems that we had. Like I could write a freaking book on like literally the stupid shit that I did, you know, like if I could write a book on the stupid shit I've done in Miracle as well.
Yeah, of course.
Right. But like, it's just crazy. If you could look at every single one of those things you did as a learning opportunity, right?
Yeah.
And circling this back around, forget business for an example, right? Or forget it for a second here and look at just like your personal relationship with your dog, right?
Yeah.
If you could look at everything that is stressing you out or everything that's a big struggle, right, that you're having with your dog, with your relationships, with your family, all that kind of stuff, right? And not immediately point that finger and say, this is this thing's fault, right? This is why this happened, right? This dog is why this happened. This person is why this happened, whatever. And you could first, before you do that, ask yourself the question of what is one thing that I did incorrectly right here, right? Then over time, the amount of growth that you'll see personally in your business, in your relationships, all that kind of stuff, you're going to see it just compound. Because every time you fix one tiny little detail, even if the rest of it then you just throw out the window, right? But you fix that one little tiny detail, right?
Yeah.
Over time, those tiny details add up exponentially.
Very true.
You know?
Yeah.
And that's been something really, really interesting that I've noticed, you know? Or I just have tried to do, right?
Yeah.
And it's the forever game of doing that.
Of course.
You know?
Yeah. But it's pretty cool to see that happening in real time, you know?
Yeah, 100%. I feel like I talk about this stuff a lot, right?
Yeah.
What goes on in your head sometimes when you look at like your company that you're trying to create and stuff right now and your brand you're trying to create? Like, what are some things going on in your head on a weekly, daily, monthly basis as far as how you're trying to actively build yourself still, you know?
Yeah. I think, you know, I've had this conversation with you a couple times where I may have gotten too far ahead of myself on what I wanted and trying to get these bigger clients and not doing the small work first, you know? And now I feel like now that I'm 5 months removed from that conversation that we had, because I think it was like podcast like 8 or 9 or something. But I feel like I have a clear vision of where I want to go with everything. And I think, you know, the thing that we talked with Alex, like, is it a job or is it a business, like a career, you know, or are you a business owner or are you just making it a job? Like, yeah, you have a business, but what are you going to do? How are you going to create that? So it's me trying to right now figure how I can make this into maybe something more than just myself, you know?
Yeah.
And I mean, it's becoming a great thing right now, but I would love to have another photographer with me, or like maybe two, and I want to kind of create like a little group at the end of the day. I think that's my ultimate goal right now, and that's why I've been kind of shooting for those bigger like corporate, you know, products and stuff like that I could potentially have like an actual company, you know, and not just me, and not just a job.
Yeah.
You know, especially like talking with you a bunch, you know, because you could have stayed that way if you wanted to, just been like, oh, it's just me and like I'm training,
Sure.
but you had a vision, you know, and you knew what you wanted to create in the long run, you know, and it's right now I'm at that point where I'm trying to figure out what's my like 3-year, 5-year plan for this Josh Dubay Productions, you know? I think that's where I'm at right now with everything.
Yeah. So you're creating the vision in your head right now.
Yeah.
You know, a lot of it is like figuring out like, okay, cool. Like, because if you have like, here's your starting place, here's where you're at right now,
Yeah.
and here's where you want to be,
Yeah.
right? This is a short-term or a long-term goal, right? Then at least you have a trajectory in which you could move towards, right? A lot of your decisions that you make at that point can reflect that immediate goal or that bigger picture goal. You know what I mean?
Exactly.
And I've never been the biggest on 5-year plan, 10-year plan, things like that, because I think that's such a big stretch of time. You know, I look at how quick things change in like 6 months, you know?
Yeah,
My goals will change in certain things.
Yeah.
But so a lot of my goals are more like micro goals, right? They're more like, okay, cool. Like I have a general plan, right? This is a general place I would like to get to, right?
Yeah.
But I look at more like little improvement here, little improvement here, little improvement here. You know, and it's kind of like, you know, we talk about Dave Ramsey. Like I like Dave Ramsey a lot, how he's got the baby steps. And the reason why he does some of the things he does is because psychologically people need small wins, right?
Yeah.
Every time you have a small win, it's like, fuck yeah. You know, like it still feels the same. It's still like, I did that. You know?
No,
like,
100%. Yeah.
So those little goals to me have always been so important for keeping my motivation up while I'm working towards the bigger goal, you know, and keeping that bigger goal loose enough, you know, where it can change and adapt and stuff.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I mean, I've had those similar goals. Like, I mean, I told you I wanted to work with bigger brands. I did that now, you know, I mean, it's just salt, but still it's like really fucking cool.
Just the salt?
Yeah.
Josh,
it's kosher.
salt is in everything.
Yeah, it is.
Literally.
Diamond
It's in
kosher.
you. There's salt in you.
Yeah, there is salt in me. I guess it's not like a glamorous watch company, you know.
Sure.
But it
ain't Rolex.
Yeah, it ain't Rolex yet. But it was like a cool milestone, you know. It was like, okay, I'm a year into this, and now I'm finally getting these clients that I've been begging for, basically, in my mind, you know, and they loved everything. They want to be like a normal client for me.
Sure.
And I guess that's what I would love to see 6 months from now is, can I get enough of those where I can hire someone to help me with, you know? And so it's building that client list and everything, but I don't want to be doing it 80 hours a week myself, you know?
Sure.
And it's like I would like to build upon something. So I think that's my ultimate thing right now is like in the next year, that's what I would like to see for myself. Yeah. I don't know if that really answered the question.
I think it does.
Of what you were asking, but
you know, it's another thing that this is what I like so much is I like learning from. Yeah, I feel like I'm constantly like through conversations that I'm having with people and stuff, I'm constantly re-changing the way that I look at certain things. Yeah. And one of them is growing a team, right? And like different ways that you can go about doing that, right?
Exactly.
Because originally when we started Heights, right? Like it was 3 of us to start, I think. 3 or 4 of us, right?
Yeah.
And you know, we all had kind of our specific jobs that we were doing and stuff. And what happened was we got really busy, and then we're like, well, we need help, right? So we hired somebody, right, for having more help, right? And they just kind of helped.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like they and I what I kind of mean by that is they just kind of like filled in and helped and like, okay, cool. We need you to do this. 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 Right. And we kept doing that to the point where we developed a team. Right. But all of those members that we had, all those team members, they were still just like help. Right.
Yeah.
It was still like they were just helping myself or Jake. Right. But like we talked about, we were still kind of bottlenecked from the standpoint of if we weren't there to be helped, those people couldn't really do anything.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, with some exceptions, obviously.
Yeah,
Like there were certain things where it's like running daycare or doing this or doing that, where it's like they knew what to do with that, right? But they were still just help for us.
Yeah.
Right? And I think it was Matt, actually. We were having a conversation one time. And, Matt, he's one of our one-on-one trainers right now. Super fucking smart guy, right? Like very, very, he's very business-minded with things. He's got a really great head on his shoulders because he's worked in a lot of different types of industries and seen how things operate. And he's very detail-oriented and stuff, right? We were having a conversation one time, and he was, he worded something we were already kind of trying to do in just like a really good way, where he's talking about, he's like, yeah, I want to do this one-on-one position, and I want to help you grow this to something that's really, really big, right? And it's exploding, you know, so that you could bring somebody else in, and instead of having them help, you could create another one of that job for them, right? And then that will free you up time, right? Instead of doing one-on-ones, you could then, this was the key with it, right? He's like, you could then create the next job, right? So basically what he meant is when all of the things you're currently doing, if you could take those things and you could look at them as like, this is a individual job that somebody can do, right? This is not just help, right? This is not helping somebody do this. This is a job. We need somebody to do this job, right? And then these things I'm doing, this is a job. We create that job. This is your job, right? Then I can go and I could look at the company and I could be like, I could zoom back. This is the company. This table's a company. I'm away from it. I'm detached and looking at it, right? And I could be like, okay, cool. What's the next job that I can create that once I've created it, I could have somebody else do?
Yeah.
Right?
Okay. Yeah.
And then I have somebody do that. And then you zoom back even more.
Yeah.
Right? And then it's like, okay, cool. What new job do I need to create then to grow the company?
Yeah.
That I could then take that job and give to somebody else so that I could, and you keep going that way.
Yeah.
And that's how you continue to make something more efficient, right? And that's how you continue, isn't it? It's like, it's
such a good way to think.
And again, I don't remember exactly how it was worded and stuff like that. And I'm giving it much more detail than what he had kind of said, but it really sparked that thought of looking at things that way.
Yeah.
Looking at things of like, what job can I create that I could then pass on to somebody else?
Yeah.
Right? That way you don't fall into that trap of, like we were talking about, still getting bottlenecked with things.
Yeah.
Right? So in your case, right? Like you right now should be looking at, and I say, this is the way I would look at it, right?
Yeah.
You should be looking at what job am I doing right now that this could then be given to somebody else, so then I could figure out what I want to do from there, right? So like, I'm losing my breath because I'm getting excited right now. So, the actual doing of the photography, the taking the photos of the products and editing them and giving them to the client, right?
Yep.
That's one job right there.
Yeah.
Right? So then, zooming back, what job do you now need to create to continue growing the company? Well, maybe the actual seeking out of the clients and the groundwork and this and the that to continue then building that, right? It's like, okay, cool. Then you have that. So you have your marketing and client communications a job, right? You have your actual execution job there, right? It's like, okay, cool. Then what do I need? Well, maybe we need somebody to handle, now that we have 2 employees, getting the books in order and making the finances in order and payroll and all those types of things. You'd probably be sitting there doing that, and you're like, okay, cool. This is how this job needs to be done. Now we can pass that on to somebody else. And then,
Yeah, and I think one thing people always worry about, they're like, oh no, that's another person I have to pay and blah, blah, blah. But it's like, you can be so much more productive now that you have that person in place. You'll make more money.
Yeah.
You know, you're going to make more revenue because now, like right now, I'm doing every single thing, you know? So I don't have the time to dedicate to maybe getting another client or anything like that, you know, where I would have more time if I did that. And I think that's why that's such a good analogy, you know, because plugging in to one thing that you don't have to do and you don't have to worry about it because you're not just getting help, you're getting a person.
Because that's the problem. If you just look at it from the standpoint of we're just going to hire another photographer and they're just going to help with the overflow of it, it's like you're still doing the same thing that you were doing before. It's like you're just doing less of it. You know, you're not freed up at that point to do something else.
Yeah,
you know,
that's very true. Man, that's such a good. That was a good way to just put everything in perspective.
You know,
dang, Matt.
Yeah. I'm gonna take a little bit of credit for that.
Yeah, no.
I don't think he was as.
You elaborated, but he planted the seed. All right,
he planted the seed in my brain of that.
That's a really cool idea, but it's I mean that's the ultimate goal right now. You know,
as the business owner, it's like, and this was a conversation I had with Sean then, right? Like, and this is where let's zoom back for a minute here. Surround yourself with good people. You know what I mean? Like, this is a conversation we were kind of just having before we started filming. It's like, you surround yourself with good people that are intelligent, right?
Yeah.
They're curious, right? They ask good questions. You can create good conversation that challenges you a little bit and stuff like that.
Yeah, exactly.
This is how you grow. You know, like so many of my, like my conversations I've had with different friends, or like I said, employees, right? Like all of my employees have taught me so many different things.
Yeah.
Right? Like, because they are all very fucking smart.
Yeah.
Right? That's why they were, you know what I mean? Like, that's why we hire them, you know?
Yeah.
And, if you surround yourself with good people, you could start to really look at this stuff this way, right?
You really become a product of your environment.
100%. What was I going to say? I was going to say something. Oh, yeah. Conversation I was having with Sean, he was saying, we want to hit, he wants to hit a point where he's like, where you could work on the business, not in the business, and the more you can zoom back, again, detach and look at the business, you could start to see how you then can create those jobs, but until you hit that point where you can do that, you're kind of stuck in it, which is where you fall into the trap of feeling like, I just need help. I just need help. I just need help. And you're not looking at it as logically at that point.
Yeah, that's true. And I think the best thing that people will take away from all of this from us is that we're just regular Joe Schmoes that did it. Like, I mean,
and I don't even want to say we're trying to do it.
Yeah, we're still trying to do it.
We'll say we're trying to do it.
We're just a little farther down the road than someone that's just starting, But I mean, when was it? 6 years ago? This is when did you get Vera?
Like 8.5, 9 years ago.
Okay.
Yeah.
But like, you were just like interested in it, and then you just fell in love with the whole thing of training and everything. I mean, it wasn't like you were born and you were like, I'm going to be a dog trainer. Like it fell in, and then you fell in love with something, and then you made something out of it. You put the time in, you put the work in, you figured out how to make things go smoothly through a lot of trial and error. But that's the thing, is like, I mean, if you had stopped at the first mistake, I mean, you'd never be here right now.
Yeah.
That's the big thing. It's like, I think you posted, I think you're the one that posted it. You like reshared one of those things where it was like the error and the success and the failure, like box. And it had the tallies in it, and it was like,
it
was like all the failures, and then there was like the 3 tallies in the win box or whatever.
Yeah.
But it's like, I mean, that's what it takes,
Yeah.
So
life's a game of failures and learning from them.
Look at that. We just threw a little
curve,
like 40-minute business talk there.
Is that what that was?
TED Talk.
This is my TED Talk. Thank you for coming.
Dude, we should go to a Gary Vee thing. I would love to, just because you've been, but I haven't ever went to any of his stuff.
We got to find something like that one that we were at, I feel like. Also, right now, I'll tell you, I'm not deep in this world at all. All he talks about anymore is like NFTs and like baseball cards.
Oh, gotcha.
He's very in that world right now.
Yeah.
Which I'm not in that world right now.
Fine.
I'll
have to go see Tony Robbins or something.
We'll see. We'll pick one of these guys.
Yeah.
All right. Okay, so that was that was business segment number 1 of episode 40.
There you go.
Now we're moving from business segment to
dogs. Yes.
Dogs. Okay, let me hit you with a quick rant here, just because. Here we go. Segment number 2.
Okay.
Things that I like in the dog training world right now, and things that I don't like in the dog training world right now.
Okay.
Right?
I like that.
Things that I don't like in the dog training world right now. I don't want to keep naming dog trainer names. I'll only do that every once in a while, right?
Okay.
There's the dog trainer that will not be named right now that's doing a board and train currently, right?
Okay.
Doing a board and train with a Cane Corso, I believe, right? There's a whole production leading up to the dog coming in on video. Oh my God, this dog's so aggressive and so fearful and this and that, blah, blah, whatever. Posting pictures in a bite suit, like, oh, going to intake the dog and blah, blah,
Okay.
Whatever. Intakes the dog. Dog just looks like your typical freaking terrified dog, right?
Yeah.
Probably like guards the owners to some extent, lashes out, if you invade their space too much and everything, but probably not the kind of dog that's going to just out of nowhere come and rip your throat out.
Yeah.
Whatever. Yeah. Same deal videos. I don't know how this is going to be such a long road for this dog, but it's going to be so hard. Blah, blah, right? Next day, he's got a toy. Like, we're trying to get this dog to play with this toy. Blah, blah, blah,
Okay.
Next day, got the long line. We're going for a long line walk with this dog. We're going to let the dog go sniff around and everything, blah, 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 right?
Okay.
Then next day, dog's loosening up a little bit, getting used to their environment, starts kind of chasing the toy a little bit. Fast forward, it's now been probably 12 days.
Yeah.
And the dog is very happy, which is good, right?
Yeah.
Happy dogs are fine, right?
Yeah.
We like happy dogs, obviously,
We
right?
do.
Dog's running, playing with the toy, right? Cool. The dog's finally gotten comfortable with you, right? Now all it is just all the hard work we had to do to get to this point. He's never played with a toy outside of home before. And in all of these videos, mind you, the dog is running and playing with a toy, but you know what else the dog is doing the entire time? Just running like a freaking psychopath around the yard, literally nonstop jumping all over this trainer, mouthing all over him and stuff like that. All sorts of behavioral issues that we don't want dogs to do.
Yeah.
Right? So let me ask you this. What did this trainer do for this dog? And was it that hard to do? First off, he did nothing.
Yeah, I was going to say nothing.
All he did was take the dog out and try to play with the dog every day.
Yeah.
Right? And listen, any dog, I don't care what dog you're working with, any dog that is really fearful is typically going to be pretty happy with their owner.
Yeah.
Right? The issue is not the dog having a good relationship with the owner, right?
Yeah.
The issue is because the dog has such a association of just, I have all these really aroused games and energies and I do whatever I want to do and we run and play, and then suddenly when something spooks me and I come into this or somebody new comes into this environment, I turn into a psychopath.
Yeah.
Right? So any dog, when you take them out of that environment and move, Jesus Christ. Any dog, when you take them out of that environment and then move them into a new environment, is immediately going to go into that scared, shut down state of mind where there's a high likelihood that they're going to bite you when they're in that state of mind.
Yeah.
Right? And any dog, if you just leave them be to their own devices and show them that you're not that scary, right, and that you're not pressuring them or anything like that, will loosen up and start to develop that same relationship with you that they have with the owner, right? But that's not the problem.
No.
Right? The problem is not that dog can't develop a relationship with somebody over the course of 12 days if that person does everything 100% perfectly and doesn't mess with the dog and stuff, right? The issue is that when the dog is scared, the dog does not know how to control themselves when they're scared.
Yeah.
Right? So what are you going to do? Are you going to send the dog home and are you going to tell the owner, wow, well, so I didn't really do any training with the dog. I just let the dog get really, really comfortable with me. So anytime you have somebody come over the house, just have them spend 12 days getting the dog really, really comfortable with them, and just make sure that they don't do anything bad, because if they do something bad, they're still going to get bit.
Yeah. I mean, I was going to say,
I don't understand.
Yeah. So you made that situation with you okay, but what if, just a random, you take them to another environment, they're just going to be the same way they just were.
Yes, exactly. Right? That's kind of the point, right? Yeah. You're not putting in place the building blocks in order to communicate with the dog when they're in a fearful state of mind, which is the key. This is why we talked about this on the last podcast. Yeah. We talked about it 17,000 podcasts. Probably talked about it 40 podcast episodes so far. Right?
Yeah.
The key is not make the things not scary. Make everything not scary.
Yeah.
The key is teach the dog how to compose themselves when they are scared. Teach the dog to work through stress and overcome stress. Mm-hmm. Right?
Yeah.
The solution is not throwing the ball 9,000 times.
No.
That's it. So it's just such an issue because, like, yes, you could look at these videos and people that don't know anything about dog training, right? They could look at these videos and they could be like, wow, he's so scared in this video and he's so happy in this video, right? But here's the thing. He's so happy and uncontrollable in that video, that second video. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, so what I want to see is when he's in that state of mind, let's get this dog under control around some distractions and let's see how that looks.
Yeah.
And listen, this is kind of like my call out of like, I like seeing that. It's not that I don't want to see that, right?
Yeah.
But I want to also see that you could keep this dog under control when it really matters.
Yeah.
You know?
Oh, yeah.
I want to see that if you have a guest come over your house that this dog does not know, that this dog is going to compose themselves and be under control and not be a nuisance or dangerous to anybody.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Don't just show me you in the backyard throwing the freaking ball for the dog over and over again.
Yeah.
That is one small piece of the solution, right?
Yeah.
Is building a relationship with that dog. It is not the end all be all.
No.
And frankly, I don't need to have that relationship with a dog in order to help them through these issues.
Yeah.
Because the dog is not my dog in the end of the day, right? The dog is the owner's dog, and the owners already have that part of the relationship established.
Exactly.
Right?
Mm-hmm.
They need the other stuff.
Yeah.
Right? They need the hard stuff. They need the stuff that isn't all flashy on camera. Right? Yeah. They need the stuff that's going to make them feel confident that when they're in these situations that used to terrify them before, that they're going to be able to keep their dog under control.
Yeah. It took me 12 days to make friends with your dog.
Yeah.
Like, what if they tried to correct that dog while he was playing and he was getting too rowdy? How do you think that dog was going to react then? Like,
I mean, I don't know.
Yeah.
Because we don't see it.
Yeah.
You know, we don't know.
Yeah.
Right.
But I guarantee it's not great.
Well, I mean, if you're not teaching the dog to tolerate consequences and rebound back from them, they're gonna, the first time they need a big correction for something, probably shut down a little bit.
Yeah.
Right. Which is normal. I mean, that's something that'll happen to a lot of dogs. But you need to start that process, right? Of like, hey, like when you're all hyped up and stuff like this, I need to know I can get you to boop, do this, or boop, do that.
Yep.
Right.
Exactly.
And seeing this led me to a conversation that I was having with myself the other day. I was trying to look at new trainers, right? Or trainers in general, right? Okay. And I feel like you have you have four types of trainer here right now, right?
Okay.
This isn't on the fly. This is me processing these things I was thinking about the other day but never actually said. This is me trying to say them right now, right? Yeah. So you got a couple of different kinds of trainers, right? You have the trainers that started out in the sport dog camp and never left the sport dog camp, right? Mm-hmm. These are the people that are just the end-all, be-all. Competition obedience is everything. And if you don't have titles on your dog, then you're a fucking loser, and you don't know anything about dog training. And I know everything, but actually I don't really train any pet dogs. I just compete with my dog, and I live on a farm somewhere or something. You know what I mean? Like, you have that kind of trainer, right? Or let me give some exceptions to that. Or you have the ones that are just like, I'm a competitive dog trainer. I don't do pet dog training, and I'm very good at competing with dogs. And I'm not egotistical about that other avenue of dog training because that's not my area of expertise.
Yeah.
Right? Which is fine. I got respect for that.
Yeah.
You got the other avenue of trainer right? And I'll classify that competition area as that could be positive only, or that could be balanced, or that could be whatever, right? Then you have the avenue of, I grew up learning old school dog training, and Keeler method of dog training is all I know, and that's all I do, and I swear by it, and everything else is stupid, right? Okay. And that they never left that.
Yeah.
Right? Then you have the people that originally started in the sport dog realm of dog training, right? Who learned a lot about the concepts and the ideas and how powerful some of those techniques are and all of that. And then they transitioned from that into learning more about some of the methods of teaching with compulsion and using e-collars and having a slightly firmer approach on things and understanding the limitations of sport dog training in a pet dog format from the owner standpoint and all that kind of stuff, right? And then you have the ones that started in the hard Keeler kind of compulsion-based training system.
Yeah.
Did pet dogs primarily, and then longed for some of the more.
Okay.
Right?
Yeah.
I think that most people nowadays are in one of those last two categories, right? So they started off in the sport dog world and they learned some limitations and they learned a fuckload about dog training and being scientifically accurate and all that kind of stuff, and then transitioned to the pet dog world, right? Yeah. And because of that, know a little bit about everything. They understand how to have really good timing with things. They understand how to teach complex behaviors, to explain things really well and stuff, but then realized they needed a little bit more in order to help those owners be successful.
Yeah.
Right? This is what we talked about with Amanda last time, because we both had that kind of background in the Michael Ellis kind of training and everything. And because of that, how much we learned from it, right? And then you have that other side, like I said, that started out in a compulsion-based system and then longed for something more. You look at this sport dog world, right? You look at, wow, look at that dog doing that focused heel. Look at how motivated and engaged that dog is over here. Look at how many different tricks and commands this dog knows.
Yeah.
Blah, 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 right? And you look at that and you're just like, and then you look at your training and it just is sometimes just kind of boring, and it doesn't look all flashy and everything. Yeah. And a lot of those trainers, right? A lot of those trainers make a really, really, really grave mistake that I see. Right? They make this mistake of they slingshot too far in the opposite direction, right? They're like, we're going to learn all about this sport dog stuff, and then we're going to make all the mistakes that I made in the beginning, which is I try to train my clients like a sport dog trainer. Right?
Okay.
We transition from, because it doesn't look fancy. Oh, it should look fancy. It should look flashy. Every dog can be like that, super happy and gung-ho and toy motivated and this and that, blah, 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 right? And then you create these expectations of you're too soft on the dogs. Your training programs are too complex for owners to be able to really grasp effectively, right?
Okay.
You create these false expectations of what a trained dog should look like, right? And you don't get the reliability that you necessarily need, and you fall into this trap then where this trainer that I won't name is kind of at right now, where it's like he slingshotted from one extreme to the other, because he used to be an e-collar trainer, right? He used to be a very heavy e-collar trainer.
Yeah.
And he was like, oh, I don't like this anymore. This is the way, right? This is the way. The Mandalorian,
this is the way.
Right? And because of that, he's stuck in this boat right now where it's like, that's all we do, right? We focus too much on the dog has to be happy. We don't raise our levels very high. And there's problems because of it.
I see.
So that's my thing I don't like in the dog training. Go ahead.
Well, I was just going to say, so is it, what do you think changed in his mind? Like, what was the biggest reason from him going so far one way to the, like that? Because it was kind of like
Yeah, we talked about this when I talked about this specific trainer.
Yeah.
In a podcast episode a few weeks ago. It's the fact that, unfortunately, in the dog training world, there's some people that are too far in that extreme, like we talked about, of this is the only way with the compulsion-based, right? We don't know anything about anything else, and they wind up being incredibly too heavy-handed in certain areas.
Yeah.
Right? This is why we have a genre of dog training called balanced training, right? It's because we don't want to be that way. Right?
Yeah.
We also don't want to be the other way, right?
Yeah.
We want to find balance in the middle.
In the middle.
In the middle. We want to find balance in the middle, right? And unfortunately, balance doesn't just mean happy and motivated and sport dog, right?
Yeah.
Balance means sometimes you have to do things you don't want to do. Sometimes we have to push you past your comfort levels a little bit. Sometimes we're going to do fun things. Sometimes things are going to be motivating. Sometimes there's going to be consequences for your choices.
Yep.
Sometimes there will be rewards for your choices. It doesn't just mean happy.
Yeah.
Happy.
You should offer a people training course too. I think some people would benefit from that. And it's not all rainbows.
I don't know. It's just it's.
Yeah. I feel that.
You know what I mean? I'm trying to think. Let me think of something I like in the dog training world. Give me a minute.
Okay.
Community and support.
Okay.
Let me say this. Let me zoom this back a little bit. As we've been doing this podcast, it has forced me to step outside of focusing just on Miracle and start focusing on, a lot of it is new dog trainers, right? Or existing newer dog trainers, right?
Yeah.
And it's forced me to, not that I didn't do this or want to do this before, but it's forced me to continue developing good relationships with people outside of just what we're doing.
Yeah.
Right? And that's a hard thing because initially, I think when you're a brand new dog trainer, you have this conversation like we talked about earlier. When we talk about competition and competing businesses and stuff like that, where it's like, oh my God, this person's going to steal my clients or put me out of business or this or that, right? Yep. As opposed to the idea that we're all fighting the same fight and it is bigger than just my company. The goal here and the goal of this podcast, right, is to build a community of really good dog trainers that could help owners with issues. So I don't get 95 emails in a day or 2 days of people that need help, right? That they can find somebody out there that's going to fit their price range, fit their personality, fit their dog's needs, that's going to be able to actually help them through some of these issues. And I take a deep responsibility right now for trying to find the way to create that connection. And find a group of people that are like-minded enough where we're not trying to necessarily compete with each other through a lot of these things. Yeah. Right? And allows us to push past the just us side of things. I think that's it. That's what I like right now is that I've been having some really great conversations with some newer trainers out there that are hungry and want to grow and are not too egotistical about things because that's something I've struggled with forever, right? And we're building and developing really great community because of it.
Yeah.
I think it's cool.
I like that.
I'm into it. So that's segment number 2.
I like that.
Oh, God. I feel like where are we at right now? Let's see. Almost an hour into things.
Yeah.
All right. So what we're going to do next here is we're going to go through the basis of our Miracle Canine Training Guide 2021.
Okay.
But I don't think we're going to go through the whole thing. I think we're going to go through the basis of it, and then we'll go over the rest of it next time. Sounds good to me. Okay. So in effort to constantly grow and evolve the way that we do different things, I'm constantly making tweaks and adjustments to the training program that we're doing, right? Yeah. Because I'm constantly experimenting myself. I'm constantly finding, as I'm working with more and more dogs, different ways to handle different things, different ways to make things more efficient. And as we get more trainers here, I'm trying to create some clear guidelines that can be followed to help reach the same end goal still. we were talking about, right? The North Star, right? These are some general things in order for how to do that. So one thing some of the staff has been bugging me for a while now is to put together like a really concrete guide as far as this is, in a perfect world, a very general, if you follow this order of operations, you'll be able to have a trained dog fairly effectively.
Yeah.
Right? So this is broken into 3 phases here. We're going to outline some of this here, right? Phase 1 is our leash pressure stage with things, right? So all good training starts with a good foundation, right? And in order to teach any sort of behaviors with your dog, you have to make sure that you have some sort of means of being able to get the dog to physically do these different things. Now, some may ask, why do you use leash pressure for this as opposed to food for this? Well, actually, we use a combination of the two, but I prefer the leash pressure because that's something I know will be universal to all dogs, regardless of if they have food drive or not, that I'll be able to shape and develop some of the muscle memory of the commands we're about to teach, right? So literally phase 1 leash pressure. The goal of this phase is to establish muscle memory of all of the positions and commands we will be using with the dog. The goal is not perfection, just that we could relatively easily get the dog into these positions with minimal resistance. We typically use a leash and prong collar and food if the dog is motivated for it in this phase, right? So again, why do we do this step? We do this step to build muscle memory of the positions. Can you do that with food if you have a very motivated dog? Absolutely, right? I used to talk about in a perfect world, if I had a dog that was extremely food motivated, there would be a phase before this where I would shape everything with just food first, then I would layer the leash pressure in with the food. So I'd make sure the dog can follow that treat into a sit, follow that treat into a down, follow that treat onto a bed. But if you combine the two in this phase and you make sure the dog understands clearly using the leash, pressure up means get into a sit, and there's a reward for it. Pressure down on the leash means get into the down, and there's a reward for it. Pressure onto the bed means get onto the bed, and there's a reward for it, et cetera, et cetera. You can kind of balance out the best of both worlds, and you could sidestep a lot of issues you may have with just trying to do it with the food. Right? So that's phase 1 of our training process. We would do that with all of our different commands. Phase 2 of our training process would be to teach all commands individually, right? With the e-collar here. So this is our e-collar stage. Now, why do we use e-collars? Again, we use e-collars because e-collars are a tool that allows you to be able to communicate very effectively and consistently as you transition from person to person, right? So as we talked about with this trainer, building this relationship with this dog just on playing and this and that cannot be transferred very easily to somebody else because it's too long of a process, right? The e-collar allows for any communicating that I'm doing with giving corrections for unwanted behaviors, teaching the dog to come to us when called, et cetera, et cetera. It makes sure that it's consistent across the board as far as how the dog is perceiving it, right? So a level 10 on an e-collar is going to feel the same to a dog regardless of how you're doing it, how I'm doing it, how Joe Schmo over here is doing it, et cetera, et cetera. It also allows you to increase or decrease the amount of motivation very easily. With just a leash, if you're giving corrections with it, you have to be so dynamic with that tool. You have to be able to be really, really soft sometimes, really, really firm sometimes, somewhere in the middle sometimes, right? And that can be very, very tricky for some people to do, right? So we use an e-collar for these reasons. So phase 2, the goal of the phase is to ensure that all commands are taught and understood completely and independently from each other on leash. Outlined is the process for each of those commands. We only work on one command per session in this phase. We use food rewards if the dog is motivated in this step. We'll spend most of your training time with your dogs in this phase. So basically what we're doing is we're going in and we're taking the muscle memory we built with the leash, we're adding our verbal commands to these positions, and we're making sure the dog understands the e-collar pressure getting into these positions with those commands, right? So we would be following a process using negative reinforcement initially, so continuous pressure, teaching the dog where the pressure comes off. From there, we would transition into allowing the dog to respond just to the verbal command initially. Then if they don't do it, responding to an e-collar correction afterwards. We begin adding duration in so they understand how to stay in those positions. And we'd spend time just taking the dog out for 15 minutes, working on a bunch of downs. Taking the dog out for 15 minutes, working just our healing, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, until we have the dog clearly understanding all of these different positions as the commands, right? So they don't understand just the muscle memory. They understand the cue associated with those positions. And again, there's a step-by-step way of doing this with all of our individual commands we'll be teaching. Again, still using food for the process, because if the dog has the capabilities for it, we like to keep the motivation as high as we can, right? We try to be fair with it. We try to be balanced with it. But in the end of the day, the e-collar is what's really going to help these owners when they go home, which is why, again, it's very centered around that. Phase 3 is combining commands and generalizing, right? So once we have all of our commands taught, we would move into a similar phase where we would take those commands and we would start proofing them. So that would mean working them in different types of environments, working them in different sequences so that the dog is being challenged. So the goal of this phase is to take all the commands we've taught and begin to show the dog different pictures and versions of the commands to proof their understanding of them. In addition to that, we will be increasing the difficulty of the commands to make sure they go from fun tricks to real-world reliable commands. These are some general ideas of how you can go about doing this. These are not concrete things that have to be followed in any particular order, just ideas on how to structure out your training sessions and showing you how to take things to the next level. Remember, focus on what the dog needs and what the owner hired us for. Don't waste your time doing flashy drills inside of the training center if the biggest issue is public access or socialization. Now, this is a big thing that I can't say enough for some trainers out there. Your owners hired you for a specific thing. So once you have everything taught, focus on those things, right? If a dog is there for dog aggression issues, a majority of your training is going to be socialization once you're out of the teaching stage. If the owner hired you because they want to be able to take the dog on patios and have the dog be calm, a majority of your sessions are going to be going to public places and working very long, hour-long downstays under tables and things like that. If the owner wants to be able to do off-leash hikes with the dog, you're going to want to go to a lot of places and work that come command a lot in those situations, et cetera, et cetera. Focus on those things. Now, this is the stage where, with the trainers that we have at our facility, where I encourage them a lot more to start adding their flair to things, right? Because the initial teaching of things, that's where the scientific way that you're doing things and making sure you're being accurate and having good timing and all that kind of stuff is really important, because you're trying to teach. You're trying to connect a cue to a behavior and have the dog understand all of the baseline communication that we need in order to keep them successful. From there, you could have fun with the dog, right? From there, you could add in your obedience command into play sessions where you teach the dog to work for a toy and incorporate the obedience commands and stuff into that process, right? Where you could mix up, again, all of the different types of things that the owner may need, and you could add your kind of spin to things, right? But keep in mind, we don't do that until we've taught everything, right? We have to build muscle memory. We have to teach. Then we have fun with the dog. Right? And different types of ways we would do that is we do generalizing command sessions. We do combining command sessions, because obviously once we've taught each individual command, when we go through a process of linking commands together, like doing comes out of downstays, or different drills where we do off-leash healing, then go do doorways, then do a down at a doorway, then go outside and put the dog on a bed and do all these different things. There are other things to keep in mind as you're linking those things together. Those are all different pictures that the dog doesn't know yet. And just because they may understand come and down and bed and all of these types of things, if you go to link all three of them together, it's a new picture. So you want to make sure you're doing that very effectively. You want to do freestyle sessions. Those are the ones where you could really put your spin on it. You could mix it up. Mix it. Scratch the deck.
God.
Oh, man. Where you would really try to paint a picture. Typically what I'll do for a freestyle session is I'll paint a picture in my head of like, okay, cool, I'm going to this place and I need to go through the doorway and come in and put the dog in a downstay while I go check in and then walk the dog patiently through these 3 doorways to go in here. Then we would release the dog and we would do some social with the dog. Then I would have to call the dog out of that social to me and leave that place and go back outside, right? Like I paint my picture in a head of like, what's a real life thing I would need to do, right? And what I'll do is I'll try to recreate that, right?
Yeah.
I'll try to show that picture to the dog, right? Another example. Oh, it's house cleaning day, right? Oh, wow. So I need to put the dog on a bed, and then I need to go vacuum around them and get the broom out and mop a little bit, maybe go into the other room to grab some cleaner spray, and come back in and do all this kind of stuff. You know what I mean? Like I'll paint these different pictures of what are real life things we might need to do with the dog, and I'll show them those pictures. That's kind of what a freestyle session to me would be, right? And then the final topics to know section, we break down markers. This is the markers that we use throughout our training program. Remember, markers are not commands. They don't mean to do something. They just identify things to the dog, right? It tells the dog clearly what's getting rewarded, what's getting corrected when they're finished with the things that they're doing. And then we get into learning theory. We've talked about learning theory on here. It's the understanding of all of the ways that dogs, humans, animals learn.
Yep.
Broken down into the positive and negative, the reinforcement and the punishment, positive reinforcement, negative reinforcement, positive punishment, and negative punishment. Understanding all of those topics and making sure that you then... Let's see what I wrote here for it. Learning theory is the breakdown of all the techniques we use to teach behavior and how they're identified. It is extremely important to understand as it will allow you to look at anything you're doing and ensure it is scientifically accurate, right? And this is where you get into people that started in the sport dog world understand this stuff very, very well. Because when you're teaching precise behaviors, when you're teaching very complex tasks to dogs, if you're not being scientifically correct with it, the dog won't get it.
It's true.
Right? It won't work.
It will not.
So the reason why I stress that this is so important is because it'll allow you to look at whatever you're doing, regardless of what it is. If you're working with a leash, if you're working with food, if you're working with an e-collar, if you're working with literally any tool that you might use with the dog, you could ask yourself, which of these categories does it fit into? And am I using it correctly? Am I adding the thing at the correct time? Am I taking away the thing at the correct time? Am I using the right type of reinforcement? Am I using the right type of punishment? Right? And it allows you to look at, wow, I'm having this issue. I need to use, what do I want to do? I want to stop a behavior, right? Which means that we would need to use a punishment because that would decrease the likelihood of a behavior, right? And do I want to add something to stop that behavior? Or do I want to subtract something? Or is there something I even could subtract, right? Probably not, right? So to give you an example of that, right? Let's take a counter surfing, for example, right? The dog jumps on the counter. They get a cookie. The dog jumps on the counter. They get steal a cookie, right? The dog jumps on the counter and they steal a cookie.
Stealing a cookie.
Dog jumps on a counter. They steal a cookie, right? So every time, if I wanted to use positive punishment for that, I would be adding something to the equation to decrease the likelihood of a behavior, right? All I would do is I would add a correction. Dog jumps on the counter. No, bam. Dog jumps on the counter. No, bam, right? Punishment, right? Decreases the likelihood of the behavior. Something they don't like happens when they do that. That's the most effective way to do it. Negative punishment we hardly ever use, right? This is something that positive-only trainers will preach. We only use positive reinforcement and negative punishment, which is the removal of something from the equation to decrease the likelihood of a behavior, right? So dog jumps on the counter, right? And they go to steal the cookie, and I take the cookie away. They don't get it, right? Dog goes to do it. I take the cookie away. Right? I'm removing the reinforcement of jumping on the counter to try to decrease the likelihood of them doing it. Again, you get into, it's a long process. Right? You have to repeatedly do that. You have to be consistent about it because if they get one time when they jump up there,
it's all for nothing.
Oh, it worked this time, right? Because it doesn't, that's it. Right? So that's kind of the idea of negative punishment. And that's why we don't really use it a whole lot. It's kind of unrealistic, you know? But it's effective in certain situations, right? We use another example of negative punishment, right? I'm petting my dog. And this is one that you could apply. We recommend people do with like puppies and stuff, right?
Okay.
Petting your dog. Suddenly the dog jumps on you. Zoop.
Done.
Petting goes away completely, right?
Okay.
So Dog jumped on you. I removed something from the equation to decrease the likelihood of that jumping. The reinforcement is gone.
Yep.
Dog gets off of you, I start petting them again. So then I did positive reinforcement. Right? I added something for not jumping, increase the likelihood of that behavior.
Yeah.
Right?
Okay.
And it gets complicated. We've done topics on learning theory, obviously. Yeah. So this is the general gist of this. This is how we kind of broke it down so everybody can understand it. It's pretty long. I think it's like 6,000 words or something like that. So we don't really have a ton of time to go over it right now because we just ranted for a long time. Where are we at here? Yeah. We're already an hour and 15 minutes in.
Yeah.
So we will be going over that next time if we don't have a guest. Sorry, guys. We're on a time crunch right now because it takes Josh and I an hour to figure out what we're going to talk about. But I think...
So is that something you're going to have for the public or just for...
We'll read it on here. We'll read into it. I don't know if I'm going to like fully upload it and be like, here you guys go. You know?
Yeah.
But if you want to sit there at the podcast and write every word down that I say, be my guest.
Okay.
Here's the thing, right? These things, I even put on it, Miracle Canine Training Guide 2021. This is going to change every year. You know what I mean? Like the training process is constantly evolving.
Yeah.
You know, it's not like it's ever going to be like I don't want to fall into a trap of like, this is the way we train forever and ever and ever.
This is it. Yeah.
This is it. You know, this is the end all be all because that's where trainers get stagnant and they stop growing.
Yeah.
Right? So moral of today's podcast here, we talked about a lot of things here. You're capable of more than you think you are.
You are.
Let's start with that. Right?
Yeah.
Stay on the path. Find the path and stay on the path and keep going. And it's okay if there's roadblocks. It's okay if there are hurdles.
Yeah.
Jump over them.
Yeah.
Go around them. Keep on the path.
Yep.
Right? Second moral of the story. What I liked and what I didn't like, right? That was the next thing. Don't get too caught up on yourself. Don't get too hung up on yourself. Is that the right? I don't know. Listen, don't always look at your training from a let me revise this. Always look at your training from the standpoint of how will this best help my owner? Right? If you could look at what is the real issue my owner is having, how do I solve that issue? You're going to solve a lot of issues doing that. And you're not going to get hung up on things that are going to look flashy for the internet.
Yeah.
Right? Build community. Find people that challenge you. Find people you could have good intellectual conversations with, both in your field and out of your field, that will help you to be able to help other people solve issues and help challenge yourself to do better work all times.
Yeah.
Always learn from your failures. Anytime something happens that you don't like, ask yourself, what's one thing I could do better? And keep writing and making things.
There you go.
I think that's it. I don't know. Josh, just take it away.
Well, it's funny that, we were talking about community and stuff, and it reminds me of the mistake I used to do and used to give me flack for all the time when like Greg Murray moved next door and I would just be like, that's my competition. And no, and I love Greg.
Competition is good.
Yeah, competition.
Don't get me wrong.
Yeah.
Listen, I look out there and I'm like, I got my eyes on you. Listen, let me let this be said as well to all dog trainers out there. I got my eyes on you still.
Yeah.
I know what's happening.
Definitely.
But anyways,
I think I was taking it a little too far.
But
it was like my arch nemesis, and it wasn't that anything bad. It was just it was like how I tried to push myself, and that was kind of a bad way to look at it. But yeah, I don't know. Today was a great one. It was a good one.
Very random.
Very random.
We went into all sorts of things I didn't think we were going to go into today.
I liked it though.
It was very listen. We also need to start having a little thumbnail somewhere on these podcast episodes. David gets preachy in this one because I already know some people are going to listen to this and be like, ugh,
preachy.
This is preachy, David. But listen, when I don't know what I'm talking about, I have to just I just talk, right? And when I just talk and there's nobody that I'm really talking directly to about things, like I'm talking to you. Yeah. We're not having necessarily a conversation about it.
Yeah.
Sometimes I get a little preachy. I'm sorry.
It's okay.
So forgive me, everybody. If you don't like preachy, don't listen to this one. But it's already the end.
So you already listened to it.
All right. Josh.
All right.
Where are they going to find you?
You're going to find me at Josh Dobay Productions on Instagram and joshdobayproductions.com.
Hell yeah. Find us at Miracle Canine Training, miracleCanineTraining.com, David the Dog Trainer. I've been posting a lot of my personal Instagram again lately. We got obviously a team handling miracles, so I figured I'd start hitting that one up, getting my thoughts on there a little bit again. Keep asking us questions. We have some really, really exciting video content we are creating right now. So definitely follow the Miracle Canine Training YouTube channel if you're not already. That's where we post this podcast every single week. The clips from it are great. If you don't want to sit down and listen to an hour or 2 hours of a podcast, you could just get little bite-sized 10 to 20 minute little pieces. And on top of that, again, all of the other video stuff we've been creating lately. So
Heck yeah.
hell yeah. Catch you guys on episode 41.